Hey, beautiful people, and happy Monday. It is another beautiful day that the Lord has made, even as we come to the last few days of this year. And I think it's a testimony of the faithfulness of God towards us. And usually on Mondays and during the week, God would have me to give a word of encouragement or a word of motivation to you all for the upcoming week ahead. And today, God has asked me to do something just a little different, which is very much outside of my comfort zone. And He asked me to share my testimony with you all. And the last video I posted, God had me share about what a testimony is and the power of our testimonies. And today, I have the privilege of sharing a part of my testimony, a part of my journey with the Lord. And in reflecting, I began to wonder what exactly it is that God wants me to share today. And the first thing that comes to mind is the story of my birth. And even as I reflect on this 24th year of life, I am grateful to God for all that He has done. And when I was born prematurely. I was 1 pound, 11 ounces. I was born 26 weeks premature. And what the usual normal time of carrying a child would be is 40 weeks. So I was quite premature. And I know there are many people that probably counted me out and did not think that I would survive. But because of the faithfulness of God, I am still here. And from what I'm told, it was a long journey of me receiving physical therapy and speech therapy and all forms of help in my developmental stages. And I can honestly say that it's God who kept me. And I just want to encourage somebody that's out there that may be going through a situation, a health challenge. The doctors can only do so much, but it is God that has the final say over your life. Because some people may have looked and said, oh, you won't survive. I remember my mom sharing with me about the fact of going to checkups, and they were checking for hearing delays and developmental delays and even possible blindness and all these other things. But by the grace of God, none of them were found near me. And that is a testimony of itself. The second thing I think of is in regards to my health. I remember around the age of 5 going to the doctor's office, and I remember they had me doing a whole lot of different tests and things. And one doctor tried to diagnose me with prediabetes at the age of 5, and then high cholesterol around that same time. And it was different doctors that we had went to, and it just seemed like every doctor wanted to pronounce or declare something over my life. And even one doctor tried to speak eating disorders over my life, but I can say that I'm still standing here by the grace of God. I am not a diabetic. I have no eating disorder. Praise the Lord. I do not have high cholesterol. And I just want to reiterate again that man can have their own opinions, but it's God who has the final say over your life. And even thinking of health, I am brought back to a memory some time ago when I was a teenager and I was on my way to church in Brooklyn, and the vehicle that I was in got into an accident. And this wasn't just a one car accident. Three vehicles hit the vehicle that I was in. It was almost like a domino effect. Boom, 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 boom. And drivers left their vehicles with bruises and bumps. But I was unscathed and unharmed. And I just think of the way in which God delivered me out of that situation. For that could have been a whole totally fatally different situation. I could have been laying up in somebody's hospital bed, complaining of pain in my body, but God preserved and kept me. God did that. God has protected me and preserved me throughout all of this time of my life. Even as I think of that, I think of a recent surgery that I had about 7 years ago. I was having pain in my knees and I went to specialists of all kinds. And then the specialist referred me to a surgeon to see because they said that I needed knee surgery because there was no cartilage in my knee and it would eventually get worse if nothing was done. And I did physical therapy for 2 years on and off, and nothing seemed to be getting better. And I remember the doctor saying, well, you need to do this surgery. And this was still an experimental surgery as they took part of the cartilage out of my knee that was there and they sent it in a lab to grow and then to reimplant it back into my knee. And the process around that was a bit scary for me as I was in high school. I remember the first surgery during my senior year went pretty smoothly. And I'm like, okay, I got this. And then I remember when the second big surgery was coming up again. I remember praying to God in the shower because, as some would say, I was going under the knife. And I was just like, God, I don't want to die, but I also want to make sure I'm in right standing with you before I go into anybody's operating table. And I prayed, and then I felt a sense of calm and peace. And I had the surgery, went through the recovery process, was on crutches for 3 long months, could not put any weight on my foot. And I was attending therapy while in school, and it was a whole process. And I remember going to follow up appointments to see the specialist, and he looked and told me at one point, you're not where I would like you to be in your journey to healing. We're going to have to go back in and do another surgery because you should be further along at this time. And I sat and I listened to him, and my mom was also in the room, and she sat and she listened. And I heard exactly what he said. But as he departed the room and I prepared to get myself together to leave as well, I got off the table and I told God this. I told him that I was not going to have another surgery because as he began the work and the process of healing in my body, that he would continue it. And so said, so done. I never went back to that doctor for a couple more months. I continued my therapy, and less than 2 months later, I went back for a follow up appointment, and my knee was bending in a better position than where it was previously. And he looked and he said, I don't think we need the surgery anymore. And part of me was like, you think so? You don't know who my God is. My God is the way maker. He is the promise keeper, and he will never put more on me than I can bear. But of course, I wouldn't say this to the doctor himself. I just shook my head. Yep, it's much better. And even thinking of the process of recovery, now I am able to kneel and to walk and to run and jump and to do things that I never could do before the surgery. And I've experienced God as Jehovah Rapha, the God, my healer, the God who has healed me from all sicknesses and diseases. I've experienced him as a waymaker and opening doors that no man can shut. I've experienced God in so many ways that I cannot even begin to explain in this short time with you right now. God has been faithful and good to me. So faithful. Even as I sit here, even now, the last testimony that I would like to share, because there's so many more. I could sit here for the rest of the year and then into next year and continue to give testimony after testimony. But even the fact that I'm here doing this live here on YouTube with you is a testimony of who God is and his goodness towards me. Last year, God began to speak to me about doing YouTube videos and encouragements. And I was a bit disobedient at first because in earlier in 2020, God gave me a vision for a power ministry called Passion, Purpose, Pursue. And in the process of discerning what this was to be like, I'm like, God, how does little old me do this? I don't know anything about YouTube. I'm not a big social media fanatic. How exactly do you want me to do this? And will it even have any impact? And the first thing God asked me to do was to upload a spoken word that I had done during college. And I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I decided that I would get some images, some moving images, and then I would figure out how to do some caption words because in my fearfulness, I didn't want anybody to see my face and I didn't want anyone to hear my voice. I just wanted to do what God told me and get out the way. And it turned out that in that first video, I did do moving images as no one saw my face, but my voice was heard. And slowly but surely, God began to plant seeds of this vision in my heart and in my mind. And almost 2 years later, here I am posting these motivational content and videos as God has asked me in obedience. And I just want to encourage someone out there, even now. Maybe God is calling you to start something that's new, something that you've never seen before, and there's no blueprint and there's no plan, and you're like, how, God? But I just want to encourage you to stay with God in that process. Keep asking questions and stay curious and stay prayerful to hear what it is that He wants to do through you. Even as the name of this power ministry that God has given me is Passion, Purpose, Pursue. We exist to encourage people of all walks of life to pursue the calling that God has given them and to do it with boldness and with passion. And I just pray that whoever is out there that God would have listened to this. I pray that you would be encouraged even from my testimony now. And I pray that God would continue to give you increased faith and increased vision to walk in everything that He has called you to do. And right now, even as I share my testimony and share this part of my journey, it's one of transparency. And that's something God has been speaking to me about is for our generation in this world to have people who are transparent, because oftentimes on social media we always see the glitz and the glamour. We see people and their end results, but we barely get a chance to see the process of what is going on and behind the scenes and how they get from point A to point B. And I just wanted to share this with you today, just in obedience to what God has called me to do. And I pray that this has been a blessing to you, and may God continue to be with you. Even as we count down these last 12 days of this year, I pray that God would continue to do exceedingly and abundantly above all you can ask, think, or imagine in your life. I pray that you would continue to hold strong and to hold faithful to the hands of God. Even as you go through the rest of this week, may God continue to empower you and to encourage you to do all that He has called you to do. And may you stay humble and obedient. Have a blessed and a wonderful week. And remember to be bold and to be you, to be all that God has created you to be. Love you all. Peace and blessings.